In episode 1, we discussed the possibility that while we know the yin to the material world is not acknowledged by the scientific community, the yang to spirit is not acknowledged by the spiritual community. When we introduce the yang into spirituality, we introduce the yin into science. Additionally, while we know that what we are discussing is the mystery of the one thing, by introducing separations and divisions, though arbitrary, they help our minds grasp what we are seeing when we look at the subject. This is what is needed for those who are materialist, but can also provide some grounding for those who are inclined to see the world spiritually. If we can define life and death, then we can also begin to define the spirit. We then introduce what might be called the engine of eternity. The nature of yin and yang are expressed as a tangled hierarchy of engine and fuel. Guiding principle and motive force are at the heart of this unity. Throughout the series, we will be using this concept of yin and yang, which is simultaneously both unity and separation. One thing that can be arbitrarily divided, but is still one thing. We try to elucidate in this episode that the usefulness of division and definition must be acknowledged. Using this tool, we can then see that material life is only present when a biological engine is running. It is only the proper configuration of matter plus the energy flow that makes the unified dual we call active life. However, there is a dormancy and potential for life when the configuration remains without the energy flowing through it. True physical death occurs when the configuration of matter can no longer maintain that feedback loop we call life. But we must still understand what energy is to better understand this process. In episode 2, by showing the dual nature of energy, we provide a path to understanding the unity of matter and spirit. Just as matter and energy are one thing, so too the physical and spiritual world are a unified dual. We already have many definitions of energy that are correct in their limited sense, but they primarily relate to flow and motion, a single aspect we might call yin. The scientific concepts of energy and matter are a single thing in different forms. This is, once again, an expression of the unified dual. The larger definition of energy, which creates a unified whole, is both structure and flow that together create a synergy. In our many uses of the word energy, energy does not exist only as flow, but as a configuration as well. For ether to flow, it becomes a wave. This is a structure or configuration of ether, which, if not in motion, is not energy. And if not differentiated in some such way, is not energy either. So, we propose that when commonly referring to energy, we are referring to the synergy of two combined aspects of energy. Unfortunately, when we speak of energy, we are also simultaneously speaking of matter, because they are one thing that is a unified dual, so things can get a little confusing. The definition for both matter and energy have now become the same explanation, a synergy of flow and structure. The definition of matter and energy given by the Vedas is this: the substance known as akasha spinning into vortices is what matter actually is, and therefore it is the motion of ether that is both energy and matter. When we simply look at the motion of the ether, we see it all as yin. When we only look at the configuration, we see it all as yang. In both cases, we make the mistake of viewing a dual aspect single thing as two binary opposites. It is at this point that we have to also describe spirituality in the same terms as matter and energy. We must insist that spirit does not exist without structure. It too requires a yang to its yin, something that is missing from the spiritual community. In this episode, we further discuss that when you are viewing the material world, you are also looking at the spiritual world. Just like when you are looking at the hardware of a computer as it is working, you are also looking at the source of worlds that computer is creating. In episode 3, we frame consciousness as the product of a unified dual. It is the whole that is greater than its two constituent parts. Furthermore, we define understanding and consciousness as one and the same thing, produced by the correct mirroring of reality in the structural configuration of the way information is connected. This mirrored structure is the yang aspect of energy. We've long seen the yin of energy, But now seeing the yang of energy is the missing piece which allows us to see how energy is also matter and spirit is also configuration. The final piece to the puzzle of consciousness is that it is the synergy we see in these combined systems. The universe is not just the dead hardware of a computer, but it has energy flowing through it, and it is interconnected in very specific ways. An appropriately configured map of connections inside a human brain that mirrors reality properly will flow in the same way reality does as energy courses through it. This is simultaneously understanding and consciousness. The yang aspect of energy is not just connectedness, but specifically a set of connections that mirror reality in the way they are arranged, so that when the yin aspect of energy flows through it, it evolves in the same way as the rest of the universe. However, mind and matter overlap at this crucial point because the very nature of matter is the flow and configuration of ether. Furthermore, while ether contains matter as self-sustaining toroidal vortices we call atoms, according to the superfluid vacuum theory, it also contains numerous, less well understood vortex filaments, which branch and interconnect in much the same way as neurons, and therefore granted a structure which is a container of information through which energy, in the form of electromagnetic waves, may flow. This concludes our first chapter, an introduction to 3S.